I'm sitting in my car outside my husband's new girlfriend's apartment at 2 a.m., watching them through the window as she runs her fingers through his hair the same way I used to. And I can't stop shaking because I know this is all my fault. 6 months ago, I had everything. A man who worshipped the ground I walked on, who couldn't keep his hands off me even after 4 years of marriage, who made me feel like the most desired woman on earth. Then one night when I came home stressed and exhausted, he tried to comfort me and I snapped, telling him his constant physical affection disgusted me and made me sick. Now he won't even look at me, and the woman upstairs is getting everything I threw away because I was too stupid and selfish to realize what I had until it was gone. My name is Rachel, I'm 31, and I destroyed the best marriage I ever could have asked for. My parents barely touched each other, so when I met Marcus at 26, I thought I'd won the lottery. This man was obsessed with me in the most beautiful way possible. Marcus worked as a physical therapist and had these incredible hands that never seemed to stop wanting to touch me. Every morning he'd wake up early just to watch me sleep, brush my hair back, whisper good morning like a prayer. When I'd get dressed for my accounting job, he'd stop everything just to tell me how beautiful I looked. Not sometimes, every single day. The physical affection never stopped. He'd grab my hand at the grocery store, pull me close during movies, rest his hand on my thigh while driving. When I cooked dinner, he'd wrap his arms around my waist from behind, nuzzle my neck. If I bent over to get something, I'd feel his hands on my hips and hear him make this appreciative noise that always made me laugh. My friends were insanely jealous. Jessica would roll her eyes when we'd show up to parties practically attached at the hip, but I could hear the envy. Her husband barely touched her anymore. Sarah's boyfriend of 3 years had stopped making any effort, preferring video games over spending time with her. Meanwhile, I had a husband who still got visibly excited just from me walking past him in a towel. And I mean visibly excited. Marcus's body responded to me like we were still newlyweds. A simple goodbye kiss would leave him adjusting himself before work. When we'd cuddle watching Netflix, I could feel him getting aroused from having me against him. If I wore anything form-fitting, I'd catch him staring with hunger in his eyes. At first, it made me feel incredible, like I had magical power over this amazing man. But by year 3, life got complicated. My job at the accounting firm became a nightmare when they brought in this new partner who seemed to think everyone should work 60-hour weeks for the same pay. I'd come home exhausted, stressed, with deadlines crawling through my brain like ants. On top of that, my mum got diagnosed with early-stage breast cancer, and suddenly I was spending every weekend driving 2 hours to help her with appointments and treatments, while my dad sat around being useless as always. I'd come home drained from dealing with her chemo side effects, his complaints, and the constant worry about losing her. That's when Marcus's constant attention started feeling like pressure instead of love. I'd walk through the door after 12-hour days, and there he'd be, lighting up like Christmas, ready to hug and kiss and touch. My body would be screaming for rest, but Marcus would pull me close, and I'd feel him getting turned on just from having me in his arms. I started tensing up, like I couldn't even seek comfort without it becoming sexual. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March that I'll never forget. I'd had the absolute worst day at work. Our biggest client was threatening to leave because of some mistake that wasn't even mine, and my boss spent an hour screaming at the entire team like we were children. Then Mom called crying because the chemo was making her so sick she couldn't keep food down, and Dad was acting like her illness was somehow inconveniencing him personally. I drove home in tears, wanting nothing more than to collapse on the couch with my husband and just be held without any expectations or pressure. Marcus took one look at me when I walked in and immediately went into caretaker mode. He made me tea, ordered dinner from my favorite Thai place, listened while I vented about everything that had gone wrong. After we ate, I was finally starting to feel human again when he suggested we watch a movie to help me relax. I curled up next to him on the couch, and he started stroking my hair, massaging my shoulders, being so gentle and sweet. For about 10 minutes, it was perfect, exactly what I needed. Then I felt his breathing change. His hands started moving from my shoulders to my arms, then to my waist. He leaned down to kiss my neck, and I could feel him pressed against my back, getting aroused. Something inside me just snapped. All the stress, all the exhaustion, all the frustration I'd been carrying around for months came pouring out at once. I whipped around so fast I nearly fell off the couch. "Are you serious right now?" I said, my voice coming out harsher than I'd ever heard it. "I come home crying, tell you about the worst day of my life, and within 10 minutes you're trying to turn it into sex." Marcus looked like I'd slapped him. "Rachel, I was just trying to comfort you. I can't help how my body reacts when I'm close to you. You know, I would never pressure you for anything." "You can't help it?" I was standing now, pacing, months of resentment spilling out. "You can't just touch me like a normal person without getting all worked up. It's like you can't see me as anything other than a sex object. I can't even get comfort from my own husband without it turning sexual." "That's not true," Marcus said quietly, his face going pale. "You know that's not true. I love you, Rachel. I'm attracted to you because I love you, not the other way around." But I was too far gone to listen. "Your touch makes me sick," I spat out, the words leaving my mouth before I could stop them. "I can't even get a hug from my own husband without feeling like you're thinking about getting laid. It's disgusting. I'm tired of feeling like a piece of meat in my own house." The silence was deafening. Marcus stared at me, and I watched something die in his eyes. Not anger, that would have been easier. He was processing that the woman he adored had just called his love disgusting. "Okay," he whispered. "I understand." Then he went upstairs to the guest room. I should have apologized that night. Instead, I told myself he'd get over it, that maybe now he'd learn to read the room better. I had no idea I'd just triggered the destruction of everything we'd built. The change was immediate. Next morning, Marcus was already dressed making coffee when I came down. Usually he'd still be in bed, pulling me close for more cuddling. When I approached for our usual good morning kiss, he gave me a quick peck on the cheek, polite, brief, like kissing your grandmother. "Have a good day at work," he said, heading for the door. "That's it? No real goodbye?" Marcus paused. "I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I'll see you tonight." By the end of the first week, something felt wrong. I was doing dishes when Marcus came into the kitchen for water. Normally, he would have come up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, maybe kissed my neck. Instead, he said, "Excuse me," and reached around me like I was a stranger. When I brought it up later, Marcus's response was so calm and logical, it made me want to scream. "You said my physical responses made you sick," he explained, not meeting my eyes. "I'm just making sure that doesn't happen anymore. I don't want to disgust you or make you uncomfortable." "But I didn't mean you should stop touching me completely," I protested. "I just wanted you to tone it down, maybe be more aware of when I'm stressed and not in the mood for physical stuff." Marcus finally looked at me then, and I could see the hurt he was trying to hide. "Rachel, I can't control how my body reacts to being close to you. It's been that way since the day we met. My body responds to you because I'm attracted to you, because I love you. If I can't touch you without getting aroused, and my arousal disgusts you, then the only solution is not to put us in that position." Over the next weeks, my husband became a polite stranger. He still made coffee, asked about my day, helped with chores, but it felt mechanical, like going through husband motions without any passion driving those actions. When we watched TV, he sat carefully spaced from me. In bed, he stayed on his side with his back turned. If I tried initiating contact, he'd respond just enough to not hurt my feelings, then pull away before things could heat up. When I'd get frustrated and ask why he was being so distant, Marcus would explain in that same calm tone that he was respecting my boundaries. "You made it very clear that my physical responses make you uncomfortable," he'd say. "I'm just trying to be the husband you actually want instead of the one who disgusts you." When I pointed out that we'd barely had any intimacy in weeks, he'd remind me that I'd called his natural responses disgusting, so he was trying to avoid making me feel that way again. "I'm not punishing you," he'd say when I accused him of withholding affection out of spite. "I'm protecting both of us. You don't want to feel disgusted by your own husband, and I don't want to feel like a pervert for wanting my own wife." This seemed like the only solution that worked for everyone. 3 months in, I was going crazy. I missed feeling wanted. I missed Marcus looking at me like I was incredible. Now, when I got dressed up hoping to spark passion, he'd tell me I looked nice in the same tone he'd used to compliment dinner. I tried everything to get a reaction, wore his favorite outfits, suggested activities we used to enjoy, tried being flirty. But Marcus had mastered appreciating me without getting aroused by me, and it was driving me insane. How was this the same man who used to get turned on watching me brush my teeth? 4 months after our fight, Marcus went to a Denver conference for a week. Normally, this would have killed us. He'd call every night wanting to talk for hours, telling me how much he missed me. This time, our conversations were brief and polite. He'd ask about my day, mention his sessions, then we'd say goodnight like business associates. When he came back, something was different. Not just distant politeness, but something else. He seemed more settled, more at peace, like he'd figured something out. That's when I found the receipt doing laundry. Dinner for two at an expensive Denver restaurant, the same night he'd told me he was eating room service alone. My hands shook staring at that paper. I confronted him that night, waving the receipt. "Who were you having dinner with? You told me you were eating alone." Marcus looked at the receipt, then at me. "I had dinner with someone from the conference, another physical therapist. We'd been talking all week about patient care approaches." "She?" I pounced on the pronoun. "Yes, she, Amanda. She's 28, works at a Portland clinic, and we had a professional dinner discussing treatment protocols." Marcus's voice was steady. "Nothing inappropriate happened, Rachel." "But you lied to me." "I didn't lie. I just didn't think it was worth mentioning because I knew you'd react exactly like this." The fight that followed was absolutely vicious. I accused him of having an emotional affair, of being inappropriate with this woman, of using our marital problems as an excuse to start looking elsewhere for attention. I screamed at him about how this was probably why he seemed different when he came back, how he was probably comparing me to her, how he was setting up his next relationship while still married to me. Marcus denied everything, but he also didn't seem particularly invested in convincing me anymore. It was like he was already checked out of our marriage and just going through the motions of defending himself, because that's what husbands are supposed to do when their wives accuse them of cheating. "You want to know what happened?" Marcus finally said, his voice rising for the first time in months. "You want to know why that dinner meant something to me? Because for 2 hours I sat across from a woman who actually seemed interested in what I had to say, who laughed at my jokes, who asked follow-up questions about my work instead of just waiting for me to stop talking, who didn't act like my presence was an inconvenience or a burden she had to tolerate." That's when he said the words that changed everything. "Rachel, I don't think we're compatible anymore. I think we want different things from marriage, and I think we should seriously consider separating before we end up hating each other completely." The room spun. "What? Where is this coming from?" Marcus sat heavily on our bed, suddenly exhausted. "It's coming from 4 months of living like roommates, from the fact that my wife finds my attraction to her disgusting, from having dinner with someone who actually seemed interested in what I had to say, who laughed at my jokes, who didn't act like my presence was an inconvenience." "So you do have feelings for her?" "I have feelings for the way she made me feel, wanted, appreciated, like I wasn't some predator for finding a woman attractive." He looked up with the saddest expression I'd ever seen. "Do you know what she said when I mentioned I was married? She said she was lucky to have someone who got to come home to me every day. When's the last time you felt lucky to be married to me, Rachel?" I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. I haven't felt wanted in my own marriage in months. I wake up wondering if today you'll finally decide you can't stand having me around. I can't live like that anymore. That night, Marcus slept in the guest room permanently. Over the next weeks, he looked at apartments, talked to lawyers, made plans for a life without me. The worst part was how calm and determined he seemed, like he'd already grieved our marriage while I was still trying to figure out how we'd gotten here. I tried everything, cried, apologized, promised things would be different, but Marcus just looked at me with tired eyes and said, "You had 4 months to show me things could be different while I was trying to make our marriage work. Instead, you got angry that I stopped pursuing you the way you said disgusted you." He was right, and I hated him for it. Even when he was pulling away, I hadn't tried to fix things. I'd just gotten frustrated that he wasn't chasing me anymore. I'd wanted him to want me without showing that want, to desire me without any physical responses. I'd wanted the impossible. The divorce papers came on a Thursday. Marcus had already moved to a furnished apartment. The house felt empty without his presence, his morning routine, the sound of him humming while getting ready. That's when I hired a private investigator. I needed to know if there was someone else, if Marcus had lied about Amanda. The report came back 3 weeks later, and it was worse than infidelity. There was no other woman. Marcus was going to therapy, reconnecting with old friends, taking up hobbies I'd gradually discouraged. He'd joined a hiking group, started guitar again, signed up for cooking classes. The photos showed him laughing with new friends, looking relaxed and happy in a way I barely recognized. But then, in the final photos, there she was. A pretty brunette around 26, meeting Marcus at a coffee shop. The investigator followed them to dinner, to a bookstore, back to her place. His report was clinical. Subject appears to be in early stages of romantic relationship. Physical affection observed but minimal. Relationship appears genuine rather than purely sexual. Her name was Emma, a kindergarten teacher. I stalked her social media for hours, torturing myself with pictures of her bright smile, posts about loving her job, her obvious kindness. Her most recent post was homemade cookies, with the caption, "Made these for someone special who's been having a tough week." I knew she was talking about Marcus. She was taking care of him the way I should have all along. I called him the next day, begging him to meet me for coffee. When he showed up looking uncomfortable and checking his watch, I knew I'd lost him completely. "I know about Emma," I said. "I know you're seeing someone." Marcus didn't deny it. "Rachel, we're separated. I'm allowed to—" "I want you back," I interrupted desperately. "I know I messed up. I know I took you for granted, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can—" "Rachel, stop." His voice was gentle but firm. "It's too late for that." "It's not too late. You loved me for 4 years. That doesn't just disappear." Marcus pulled his hand away when I reached for it. "You're right. It doesn't disappear. But it changes. Emma makes me feel good about wanting her. She tells me I'm attractive. She initiates intimacy. She doesn't make me feel like a creep for getting turned on by my own girlfriend. I can't go back to feeling ashamed for being attracted to the person I'm with." "I can change," I whispered. Marcus shook his head sadly. "You had months to change while I was begging you to work on us through my actions. Instead, you just got angry that I wasn't pursuing you anymore. Even now, you're not really sorry about what you said. You're just sorry about the consequences." And he was right. Even sitting there crying and apologizing, part of me still thought he was overreacting. I still didn't understand that calling someone's love disgusting isn't something you bounce back from. Marcus stood to leave, and I knew this was my last chance. "Please, I love you." He looked at me one final time with the saddest expression I'd ever seen. "I know you do, Rachel, but love isn't enough when you can't appreciate how it's given to you." Then he walked away, and I watched through the coffee shop window as Emma pulled up to pick him up. She got out and threw her arms around him, and I saw him smile in a way he hadn't smiled at me in months. That was 3 weeks ago. The divorce papers are signed, Marcus is gone, and I'm sitting in my empty house finally understanding what I lost. I had a man who worshipped me, who couldn't keep his hands off me after 4 years of marriage. And I destroyed it all because I was too selfish and ungrateful to appreciate what I had while I had it. Now Emma gets to experience the incredible love I took for granted, and I'm left with nothing but the knowledge that I threw away everything with 5 words. Your touch makes me sick.